And welcome back, YouTube. This is Boosterbox Buster, here with another Wildcard Wednesday. Today's video is a lot different, as we're going to be taking a look at a very classic style Yu-Gi-Oh deck that I ran back in the day. Now this is a deck that I ran mostly at locals, and just like kitchen top type games, and it was a lot of fun to run back in the day. It won me games, it lost me games, and the main point of the game, I had a lot of fun. As you can tell, the sleeves are very well worn, so I had a lot of use out of this particular deck. And it was very fun. It is a 40 card deck. I would sometimes throw in just like a 41 or 42, just to mess around a little bit, it's just have a little fun. And this is my extra deck. My sideboard has long since been dismantled, so I don't even remember what I sideboarded back then. But let's take a look. Please keep in mind, this deck was I played this deck through the beginning of the XYZ era, so a lot of these cards, some of these cards might be banned, limited, or unlimited since then, so please keep that in mind. The first card that I ran in this particular deck was Effect Veiler. This and Honest were the original hand traps, very potent. Very good card to basically straight negate any effect monster that was summoned that turn. There were a lot of effects that just went off right away, and then if you get caught in an effect loop, you could be very devastated. So very important to run an Effect Veiler back then. Back then you almost didn't even want to sideboard it, you almost had to mainboard it just because of all the shenanigans that could happen. And as we reveal the main part of the deck, it was indeed 6 Samurais. I love warrior type monsters in Yu-Gi-Oh! That's why I kind of have an affinity for Noble Knights, and the 6 Samurai was a beast of a deck back in the day. Even after they removed one of the main chains of it, which was Gateway, it was still a rather powerful deck. So I ran not one, but 2 Grandmasters back then. I found Grandmaster to be one of the main key parts of the entire deck. However, the drawback with him is you could only have one out on the field at a time, so you did have to be very careful about running too many of them, because if you ran 3 of them, then you could be stuck with 1 or 2 in your hand, and it would be just a dead draw. The next were the Legendary 6 Red and the Legendary 6 Blue. I ran 2 apiece, and these were the next part of the engine that made Gateway bannable. These 2 and Grandmaster, basically they could loop and get endless counters and just do an entire field wipe and build up your side of the field to be a near unstoppable force at the time. Even without it though, I could still manage a partial loop, which would get rid of a lot of cards on my opponent's side of the field, which I was still very happy with at the time. So 2 of each red and blue. In hindsight, I probably should have been running 3 of each, but I didn't like to run a lot of 3-ofs just because I was very afraid of having a potential dead draw at some point in the game. The next one was Kagan of the 6 Samurai, and this guy was in the deck purely because of Shien. Purely he's the tuner that can be summoned, and you could get a turn 1 Shien instantly and really have a good control of the field. So that's Kagan of the 6 Samurai. Now, the Great Shogun Shien. This was always a debatable card. I always thought about putting this in my sideboard, but he always ended up making his way back in the deck somehow. The Great Shogun, very powerful card with Shien, the legendary Six Samurai, as he is ability. He limits your opponent to I think it was one spell. Yeah, your opponent can only successfully activate one magic, or one spell or trap card per turn. So, with the power of Shien, who had the ability to negate one spell or trap card, you could kind of pick and choose what card you allowed your opponent to cast, and then you negate. Like if you really don't like the first card, negate it, and hopefully the second one is a good viable option to pass or let them go through, and then they can't cast any more for the rest of their turn. So I always found the Great Shogun Shien to be a viable option if you could get out Legendary 6 Shien early on. The Hand of the Six was just a very fun card, because it's basically just a Chibi to 6 Sam, but kind of very similar to, I think it's red. Yeah, you tribute red, or very good if you can't hold red. The hand is a very good alternative, plus your opponent probably wants to get rid of red, so you have the hand as potential backup. Kagan, this was kind of a late addition. This guy was one of the very last cards that I added just because I needed that 40. His effect was basically, he was purely added because I had another pretty powerful, potent extra deck card at the time, and he was the only viable way I could summon him. So he was pretty much purely in there just in case I happen to draw him. I have the tuner, then it's like, oh, I can get this particular one out. I did, just in case I want to have a little extra fun for that round. Legendary 6 Samurai Kageki. This guy was the main engine to get out Shien. This was the one of the few cards that I actually ran 3 of at the time. Because you get this guy, you get the tuner out, boom, you get Shien. You get this guy out, you get not this guy, you get this guy and the other tuner out, you get the other monster. So, very potent at the time. That's why I needed 3 of them. You get this guy out, you summon another 6 Samurai monster. And it was, just in my opinion, a very potent, very fun, quick archetype to use. Probably the main engine of this particular deck. And if I want to have some fun, if I'm facing a very anti-6 Sam deck and I know it, I just set that guy and let my opponent attack it, and they probably lose because it's 2000 defense. Up next, this was one of the very last editions, and I always kind of regretted putting him in here, and I don't know why I kept him in here. This is kind of the question mark of the deck. Like I said, this was always kind of like a... I don't know why I put this card in my deck. I think I traded for it at the time, and I was like, oh, I want to run it. And then I kind of regretted it, but I never took it out because it was toward the very end of my playing this particular deck. And that just kind of ended up that way. Yeah, this was definitely a card that I in hindsight, should not have ran. But it had Shien in the name, and I was like, oh, it's part of the Six Sam theme, or Six Samurai theme. I'll give it a whirl. It didn't work out. This guy, I ran one of this guy just in case I ever wanted to have a little bit of fun. Plus, he was an Earth, warrior, or Earth spellcaster, sorry, which was just a kind of a fun little effect. And to be honest, this guy in a 6 Sam deck is essentially a penguin soldier. You set him, you flip him, return one face-up monster to your opponent's hand. If you have a warrior-type monster out, you return 2 face-up monsters to your opponent's hand. Essentially a penguin soldier. And back then, you know what? It was kind of fun to run. A little bit of a troll card. Very unexpected in a 6 Sam deck. I'd set it, my opponent would attack and be like, what the heck is that? And they'd lose 2 of their monsters. And I apologize, it wasn't to the hand, it actually returns it to the top of the deck, so it really is annoying because your opponent's going to draw that card, and they're going to be like, well, I could have used a different card, I don't really need this card now. And if it's a extra deck card, it doesn't go to the top of the deck, it goes away permanently. Very fun, very unexpected card. Would I choose to run it again? I'd probably sideboard it just for the giggles. 6 Sam United, this was a draw engine if I remember right. Yep, basically every time a 6 Sam is special, normal or special summoned, you put a counter on here. When it has 2 counters, send it to the graveyard, draw 2 cards. Essential draw engine to any 6 Sam deck. You get this turn 1. Let me just share it with you. You activate it. Honestly, you can summon almost anything. You summon him. You get Shien. You send that to the graveyard, get 2 cards. You just plussed for days there. So yeah, the original draw engine, before Gateway was abused to oblivion, very powerful card indeed. This was a staple for many decks back in the day. I know it's been outdone and outdone again, but MST is still a fine card to this day in case powerful cards get demoted. The Warrior returning alive, this was purely to kind of keep that loop going because Gateway was banned, so this kind of kept that loop halfway going. You send blue to the graveyard, you return him to your hand with this, you summon him, you pop him. You basically get an additional loop out of it. So, very fun card to use. Rhoda in a 6 Sam deck, no brainer. You get to take level 4 or lower. Level 4 or lower warrior from your deck to your hand. No brainer, need to run it. Shien Smoke Signal is basically Rhoda, but specifically for 6 Sams. And it only can target level 3 or lower. Which is fine, because I'm targeting either this guy, this guy, this guy, or this guy with that card 99% of the time. That's basically in case I don't get the cards I need. Turn 0, activate that, get my combo off. Cunning of the 6 Samurai. This was a very late edition because I happened to be, I think at Walmart, they had a random legacy pack sitting in the discount bin. Bought it, had this card in it, and I'm like, This is fate. I'm running 6 Sams. I gotta play this. In hindsight, not the best of cards, but it gets you a, you basically pop one of your own 6 Samurai, and summon a different 6 Samurai from the graveyard, either player's graveyard, in case you're playing a mirror match. Definitely, definitely good in case you lose a powerful 6 Samurai or Shien, the legendary 6 Samurai from your extra deck, ends in the graveyard. Get him back with this. Temple of the Six. What did this card do again? Ah, I remember why. I had no other field spell cards at the time, so I was like, huh, I'll use that. You get this card out early in a 6 Sam deck, that Floodgates. Your opponent could have 0 attack monsters if they're like 1500 attack. Basically, it was because 6 Sams are, while they're very powerful effect-wise, they're not the most powerful attack-wise. And this, even the playing field, you draw this early, you're in good shape. You draw it late, it's a dead draw. So, yeah, like I said, I get this early, I use it. If not, that was unfortunate. Not the best of cards in 6 Sam, but could be a fun one. Dark Hole, of course, board wipe, Monster Reborn. Whenever Monster Reborn is legal, I ran it no matter what deck I'm running, because Monster Reborn is that powerful. It is what I'd consider a power 9 of Yu-Gi-Oh! It is dang good. Why? Brings back a monster from either player's graveyard. Boom, straight to the field. And you could do anything with it. You could take your opponent's strongest monster in their graveyard, use it against them, you win the game. Bring back your strongest monster in the graveyard, use it against your opponent, hopefully win the game. I have had the tide of battle turn so many times with Monster Reborn. It was ridiculous. So many games won, so many games lost, with one card. What did this one do? This one, I don't know why I ran that one. I honestly don't know why I ran that one. It targets one face-down magic trap card. If it's a trap card, all players remove all the copies of that trap card from their deck from the game. I honestly don't know why I ran that one, I'm not gonna lie. It seems like a very questionable decision. I don't know what I was thinking, it must have been a late edition. Dimensional Prison. This one was very powerful at the time. Because basically, your opponent declares an attack, the monster's gone. It's banished. Gone. Be gone, knave. Forever. This card, everybody was running. It was basically like the bottomless trap, or no, it's basically like the mirror force of its time. Super powerful, because a lot of other cards were banned or restricted at the time. This one I think was limited to 2, because I do have 2 of them, so it had to be at least 2. And everybody was running it. And it was a very powerful card for its time. Dimensional Prison banishes one monster that's attacking. I ran it to protect myself. Solemn Warning, I ran this one purely because Solemn Judgment was banned at the time, or else I would have ran Judgment instead. Still not a terrible card, but Judgment's always better. It's Judgment. Tribute. Basically, this was the backup plan in case things were going wrong. I could at least hopefully hold off my opponent for one extra turn. Mirror Force, everybody loves Mirror Force. Classic card. Now this card, a lot of people said was not the best, but I've seen it to be basically the anti-destruction. Your opponent activates a spell or trap card or monster effect that destroys the card, which a lot of that stuff was going on at that time. You activate this, negate the effect, and destroy the target card. Of course, you had to have a 6 Samurai in order for the effect to activate, but in a 6 Sam deck, you're probably going to have a 6 Samurai monster on the field. And Call the Haunted. This card has seen better days, as you can clearly see, but I purely ran it because I guess I couldn't get Monster Reborn, and I needed that cheap monster return to the field. And now for the extra deck. The extra deck, a lot of the cards aren't going to make sense because I did not have a lot of XYZ or Synchro. I forgot the word for a second. I did not have a lot of XYZ or Synchro monsters, so a lot of these are going to seem random, but I did run a few prominently. Obviously, Xian, the most powerful card, in my opinion, in this deck. My main goal of the deck was to get this guy out. I get this guy out, boom, my opponent's in trouble. Because basically, my opponent, it's all about control. Negate the activation of a spell or trap card with this guy's effect. The Great Shogun, my opponent can only successfully activate one magic or trap card per turn, so I can kind of choose if I want the first one to go off. If so, boom, my opponent can't activate anything more that turn. If I don't, I negate it with Xian. Very simple. Very powerful card. One of the best, probably the best 6 Samurai ever printed. This guy right here, the sole reason, where is he? That this guy was in my deck. I needed him in order to summon him, because he needs earth monsters only. And they need to be equal to level 6, so Kagemusha the 6 Samurai, Earth Tuner. Legendary 6 Samurai Kaizen, Earth non-tuner. Level 4, level 2, adds to level 6. And that's how I got this guy out. Once again, this guy's about control. I believe this guy was a trap card. Yep. Remove from play 2 cards in your graveyard to negate the activation of a trap card. So, if I couldn't get Xian out, but I had this guy, boom, I could still at least negate trap cards, and if I had both of them out somehow, my opponent was in a world of control. Sea Dragon, I ran this purely for filler, because it was 5, and I needed a tuner plus a level 3 monster. And I could easily get it out, so that was purely filler in case I needed something. Same with this guy. Same with this one. I don't even think I could get this guy out. No, I couldn't. So he was purely in there just for filler. This guy. This guy. This guy. And Driven Daredevil. A lot of those, like I said, were purely filler. I put them in there just because I could. Because there was no rule in Yu-Gi-Oh! That said you had to be able to successfully summon the card from your extra deck in order to put it in your extra deck. At least as far as I know. So it was just in there for filler, just to be like, hey, what does he have in there? Instead of, he only has one card type thing. Basically the fear of the unknown at that time. So with all that said, that was my old school Six Samurai deck. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Hopefully it didn't go too long for a lot of you guys. And if you like this one, let me know, because I have an even older school deck from before there was a ban list. There was a restricted list, but no forbidden. If you guys would like to see that one, let me know in the comments down below. But until next time, this has been Booster Box Buster with another Wildcard Wednesday, sharing with you an old school Six Samurai deck. Signing out.